Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode of The Nest. That is the New England Sports Talk. Before we begin today's episode, we would like to offer our thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of Dwayne Haskins, who passed away today. He was only 24 years old and gone way too soon. It is a very big tragedy, and my thoughts or prayers are with Dwayne Haskins and all of his family and friends.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to swallow, especially he was so young. He had such a great career ahead of him. At 24, it's a not just a career cut short, but a life cut way too short. And especially the tragic nature of the way it happened, being struck by a vehicle. It just emphasizes to you got stay safe out there on the roads. It's tough, but yeah, I'll be feeling for him and his family, and yeah, moving forward.
Yeah, same here. Definitely my thoughts are with his family and friends. It's a really difficult time, and again, just gone way too soon. I'm sure he must have been really loved by his family and friends, and must be very hard. So my thoughts are really my thoughts and prayers are with them.
Yeah. So, regards to the episode today, so the Red Sox have begun the 2022 season as they lost to the New York Yankees 6-5 yesterday. So we will also be doing a preview of the 2022 baseball season, as well as discussing the Celtics and the Bruins as they are going to be preparing for the upcoming playoffs. And we will also discuss the Patriots offseason a little bit as the draft is coming up at the end of this month. And joining me for today's episode, as you heard, are Anirban Chakraborty and Rohan Venkatesh. So just
Good to
formal
be here.
welcome, as always.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no, definitely. So let's just talk about the Red Sox and I guess just baseball in general, right? I mean, obviously, it's not quite like the season preview, like we already have a couple games underway, but really it's still a very young season. So I guess like today we're going to just start off like kind of going through the division winners as usual. So I guess for the AL East, for me, I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to win the AL East, but I think the Red Sox will get in as a wild card. So that's my AL East. For the AL Central, I'm picking the Minnesota Twins to win that division. I think they added a lot of players like Carlos Correa, and they still have Byron Buxton, Jorge Polanco. So they have a pretty good offense. So I'm picking them to win the AL Central. AL West, I think it's going to be Houston Astros. I mean, regardless of what you think about them and their past as like whatever's happened in the past with the Astros, like I still think they're a very good team. They made it to the World Series last year again, despite everything that's happened. So I still think they're going to be winning the AL West. And I guess for the wild cards, I'm going to pick the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Chicago White Sox. Let's hear your predictions, though. I am curious.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox, they definitely have a really strong team, and it's given what they achieved last year. I think getting to where they got last year is considered kind of an overachievement. I think that's would be considered baseline. Anything short of that would probably be a disappointment for the Red Sox part. So I have them at least like making it to the ALCS. I think it's probably not even a stretch to say that they go to the World Series and even win it. I think it is a stacked division though. I probably do see the Red Sox either barely winning the division or probably slipping in as a wild card. But I think the Red Sox can hold on and win the division. And I think that the wild cards are going to be the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Both you got three excellent the Yankees and the Blue Jays, and probably because of the expanded format, you probably have the Rays also slipping into the playoff structure as well. So I honestly think that the AL East is going to send 4 teams to the playoffs, and I would not at all be surprised if something like that happens. AL West, I think it's fair to say that Houston's always going to be strong. They're probably going to be sending in and sending them into the playoffs. And for the AL Central, I think the Twins are they'll generally have a pretty good showing. Come playoff time, I think they're probably going to end up being one of the first teams to get bounced. Though probably it's probably going to be versus a team like the Astros or something like that. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I'm going to go with the Red Sox going to the World Series on the AL side, and then on the NL side.
Wait, not yet. Not the NL. We have to wait. Let's just wrap the AL first.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So Anirban?
Yeah, I would actually kind of echo Rohan when I say that the AL East looks really strong this year. And I mean, I think the Red Sox Yankees game that we saw yesterday, which I'm sure we'll get to, is kind of a reflection of I think we're going to see some really entertaining games between these kind of rivals this
That
season.
was a slugfest yesterday.
It was, and it was really all over the place. A lot of extra innings. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But anyway, to answer your question, I would say that I do think the Red Sox stand a really good chance to win the AL East. I mean, I know that it's a stacked division, and obviously things on paper don't always translate onto the field. But looking at our infield and the addition of Trevor Story as an example, I think we've definitely made some strides there in the offseason. Definitely some losses like Chris Sale's injury that we'll see how we deal with that. But as of now, I think again, like Rohan said, given what they achieved last season with the squad they had, I'm pretty optimistic. Then if we go to the AL Central, actually, I'm not sure anyone really brought the Royals yet, but I think the Royals have actually started. I mean, they started with a win, obviously, but they're looking. I think they're also looking like they're in a really win now kind of mentality, like with some of the players that they have and the organization of their team. So I think the Royals, you're going to really see them have a lot of drive to really make it to the playoffs, make a deep run this year. So I think they're going to be a good contenders from the Central. AL West, I mean, I agree with you. Unfortunately, like, kind of the way it is, the Houston Astros are just really the team to beat in the AL West. So I think that's pretty fair to say that they'll be taking that. And then I guess with the wild cards, I mean, I could see the like teams like the Yankees or the Blue Jays getting in. Maybe I guess we could see like what like a team like the Tigers can do, but I'd say like those are kind of my kind of clear picks for the playoffs. And then again, of course, we'll see. Ask me again in another 2-3 months, see if my answer is the same.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so now let's talk about the National League. So Rohan, you were already going into that. So let's hear your picks for the National League.
On the National League side, for the AL East, I gotta go. I mean, the NL East, I gotta go with the Mets. The Mets are they're looking way stronger, especially with the addition of Max Scherzer. That's probably like the big name signing, at least on the NL side. And then for the NL West, I think the Dodgers are always going to be up there. So I have no reason not to think that the Dodgers are going to win the NL West. And NL Central, I think the Cards are getting stronger as well. I mean, Pujols is coming back to the line, although he's much older now, so he's probably not like his former self. But anytime you see something like that, I think it's going to reinvigorate the lineup. So I think those are three like decent teams as division winners. When it comes to the wild cards, I'm not really quite sure like who's gonna be in the mix, at least for the NL wild card spots. I mean, could the Cubs sneak in? Could the Giants sneak in? Maybe like no. I think the Nationals are probably going to be a wild card. The Nationals are definitely pretty good. In terms of the other two, I would say probably maybe the Giants or Cubs. I think those are probably going to be the other two wild cards. I think that's going to be a lot more geographically spread out in the NL, the wild cards, than say in the AL, because in the AL, I think all the good teams are just piled in the East. So, but I don't think that's the case in the NL. I think it's going to be a lot more geographically diverse in that sense. But when it comes to I think come playoff time, I think NLCS, I think the Mets beat the Dodgers. I think it's going to come down to that. And then that sets up the World Series, which if you since I have the Red Sox going to the World Series, it's going to be a rematch of 86. And I think it's going to be Red Sox Mets. And oh boy, would that be sweet for a reversal on that from the 86 outcome. Not like any of us remember that, but for those of you in Red Sox Station who do remember 86, I guess that would be a little bit of sweet revenge, especially if the Mets end up having a Buckner moment of their own. So that's just my personal take on it.
Okay, so Red Sox over Mets. Okay, so I mean, for me, so for the National League East, NL East, I also agree the Mets are the strongest team in that division, I think. The NL Central, so the Brewers won the division last year, but I'm actually going with the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously, they've brought back Albert Pujols, and they have Yadier Molina still and Adam Wainwright. So it's almost like a farewell year for the team, like kind of like a reunion of sorts from that 2011 championship team and even 2006 championship team that those three won together with the Cardinals, those two championships. So I'm going with the Cardinals to win the NL Central. The NL West, I'm going to actually go with an interesting pick. I'm picking the Padres, actually. Last year, they were a pretty big disappointment, but we actually had the Padres as a World Series contender at the start of last year. And I think this
Interesting.
year... So, yeah.
So that means, are you saying the Dodgers are going to be a wild card, or the Dodgers miss outright?
No, so I have the Dodgers as a wild card. But just remember, last year the Dodgers were the wild card too because the Giants actually won the division last year.
Yeah.
So the Giants won 107, I believe, and the Dodgers won 106. So the Dodgers actually were the wild card, and they beat the Giants in the NLDS. So I'm actually picking the Dodgers once again to be in the wild card. This time the Padres win the division, and yeah, as I mentioned, the Dodgers are a wild card. I think the Atlanta Braves, who won the World Series, of course, I'm still going to pick them to be in the playoffs, as I picked and also the Milwaukee Brewers. So those are my 3 wild cards: the Dodgers, the Brewers, and the Atlanta Braves. And my prediction for the World Series is going to be Red Sox Padres. I think the Red Sox will I think they have a good team this year, and I just sort of like everything that's flowing along. Obviously, yesterday was disappointing, like the loss to the Yankees, but there's 162 games.
Yeah, one down, 161 to go.
Yeah, I mean, just for reference, in 2018, they lost their first game to the
They got swept by the Orioles. No,
well,
but
that was last year.
They got swept by the Orioles at home, and at that time, it looked like the Red Sox were in shambles, and then we all know what they achieved after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm not really too worried about one game, especially like so early in the year. But obviously, there are concerns. I think the bullpen and the starting rotation definitely will have some concerns that might come back and hurt them at some point.
That's a pretty big concern. I mean, if your pitching staff isn't intact, then that's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends if Evaldi really holds down the fort as the number 1. Obviously, we'll see the rest of the rotation going forward, but I am at least
good hitting wins games, good pitching wins championships.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, there's still 161 games left, so I'm not too worried. But I'm going with Red Sox over Padres for the World Series. So I am picking the Red Sox to win their 5th World Series since 2004, which would be remarkable. So yeah, that's my pick. So Rohan has Red Sox Mets. I have Red Sox Padres.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll have to give this a try. I mean, NL East, I think I agree that the Mets look the strongest, especially kind of starting the season. I will say now that I live closer to Washington D.C., I am starting to pay more attention to the Nationals. I think they still have like kind of some interesting. I think they have some pretty good pitchers like Doolittle. So maybe they could do a finish in the wild card spot. NL Central, I guess I would say I think the Brewers could still kind of pull something off here. I mean, remember they were definitely a kind of team that were, I guess, really scoring high numbers during the regular season, and then like Christian Yelich, players like them who they kind of relied on just couldn't get the job done. But I think they'll at least do really well in the regular season. And the Brewers do have a pretty elite pitching staff. So, if Christian Yelich can kind of have a bounce back year when it comes to the playoffs, maybe they can make a bit of a run there. Then the NL West, I mean, I guess the safe answer is the Dodgers, right? I mean, and when you think about the addition of Freddie Freeman as well from the Atlanta Braves, I mean, they just got better, right? The Dodgers just keep getting better. They took
and they still got Mookie Betts and it's a stacked team.
It's so it's one of those things where that like they were so good last year, they were so good like the last couple of years, and they just got another great player. So I think it's really hard to not say that they'll win the NL West. But I do agree that the Padres are kind of interesting. I mean, Tatis Fernando Tatis is injured right now, so. But when you look at the rest of the NL West, I mean, the Diamondbacks don't look like they've improved that much from last season. The Giants, I guess they've started pretty well so far in that one game sample size you have. But I think the Dodgers and the Padres are really the top 2 in the West. So if I were to make a final kind of World Series prediction, I guess I would say I feel like this year maybe we'll see a bounce back from the Brewers. We'll see it because again, like last season, I don't think pitching was an issue for them. If they're able to really get their offense going a lot more, especially in the playoff time, I think we could see a Red Sox Brewers World Series, which would be pretty unique. Those aren't 2 teams that have much reason to play each other normally. So I'm going to say Red Sox Brewers.
Okay.
Interesting.
So you have the Red Sox beating the Brewers?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's gonna be easy. 4-game sweep.
Wow. So I guess all of us are homers then.
Yeah, but I mean, if we really think the Red Sox are going to do well, then I think it's okay to pick them, right?
Yeah, because
so this is setting the expectation high for the Red Sox.
I kind of struggled with this pick though, because am I saying this because I really think so, or is this just wishful thinking? But the Red Sox generally look really good this year.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think like in 2018, right? Like sometimes you just have a feeling that this is a dominant team, regardless of whether or not you support them or not. So in this case, I think they are a very good team. And this just sort of shows the expectations of what we think this team is capable of accomplishing is a World Series championship. Like last year, they were very close to it. If their offense had kind of not fallen off at the end, they
Yeah.
probably could have beaten the Braves in the World Series. It didn't happen. So I think it's reasonable for us to expect that this team can win the World Series this year. So yeah, that'll sort of be like kind of our take on the predictions, and I guess just like a quick discussion on yesterday's game against the Yankees. I will say it was a little
Yeah.
disappointing because they were up
Eovaldi
3-0.
didn't really, Eovaldi kind of had a shaky game at best, like 5
At
innings
least the
pitched, 5
Ross.
hits.
I mean,
Garrett
Garrett
Cole
Cole did not pitch that much better either. So I mean, he allowed like
Yeah,
3
yeah, it
runs
was
in the
just
first inning.
yeah, and the Red Sox weren't really able to hold on to a lead. That's
And
I know
Garrett
I know it's
Whitlock,
one game.
I can't really blame Garrett Whitlock because like I think it was his third inning of relief when that happened when he allowed the home run to DJ LeMahieu. That made it like 4-4. And then in extra innings, they got a run, but they allowed another run. And then Josh Donaldson with a walk-off. So, I'm not too upset about it. It is a little disappointing that they lost to the Yankees because that's always a little bit annoying.
So the magical runner on second base is still there in extra innings. I thought because I thought that like I thought they got rid of that.
No. For next year, they got rid of it. This year, it's still there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was part of that agreement.
I got one cool factoid about that I saw today was that well, I mean, it wasn't really a positive one from our perspective, but it was actually the first Yankees walk-off on opening day since I think Yogi Berra in 1957. So,
okay.
I mean, again, I would have been happy if it didn't happen, but I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I still think the Yankees should be a good team this year, so I think they're going to not be easy to beat.
Oh, yeah. 2005, the Yankees walked off in their second game of the season against the Red Sox. Jeter.
Oh, yeah. I think I might remember that.
It's interesting because, like, the teams are big rivals, but, like, in terms of opening day, like 2005, 2010, 2013, then 2022, I don't think they've played opening day since then. Since 2013.
Since 13 and 22, yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like it's interesting, but it's always good. It's a good rivalry, and like I think that both teams are pretty good, competitive. So it'll be a good season for sure. So yeah, that's sort of like my takeaway of the baseball season so far. It's way too young for me to really make any judgment or comment. And after how last year went, like where they got swept by the Orioles the first week, and then it looked really bad, but then they turned it around completely. So I'm not gonna like hold any judgment at this point because it's just too early. Like I have a high expectation for this team, as all of us do, since we all picked them to win the World Series. But I'm just gonna not have like I can't make any decision just on one game, right? It looks like Devers is looking good overall. Trevor Story didn't get a hit, but you know what? He still has 161 games. I'm not worried about that. So overall, I think we'll see what happens. I think they played today against the Yankees again, and this weekend they have 2 more games. So if they can win at least one of them, it's okay for me early on.
I mean, one thing I just quickly add. I mean, yeah, Devers of course hit his home run, the 2-run blast to get things started, but I think there is kind of some concerning news that he's apparently rejected a contract offer from the Red Sox. He's actually
and also Xander Bogaerts as well, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like I feel like I'm kind of worried like about that kind of putting a cloud over the team or kind of.
Well, I don't think it will be a big issue because Aaron Judge also rejected a contract by the Yankees, and the Yankees actually publicly leaked the contract details that Judge refused. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. I think the way these players sort of operate now is.
Hey, you think the Red Sox can scoop him up eventually?
I mean, the thing is, he turned down a 7-year, $230.5 million contract.
Yeah, Chaim Bloom is not doing anything even close to that.
Yeah, because
and also like Judge is going to be 29. He's going to be 30 this year. So that contract would take him to age 37. Do you want to pay Aaron Judge $1 million at age 35, 36? I don't think so.
Yeah, because Devers is 25 and his deal was 8 years for 168 million, which probably
that's still about 33. That's not too bad.
Isn't that 21?
Yeah, but 8 years, 168 million, so 21 million a year, which is kind of low now.
But yeah, like but I guess we'll see. That'll come out more in the upcoming weeks. But it is, I guess, a slight damper on because I think if anything, yesterday just showed us, why like the value that.
And Bogarts also got injured right yesterday, so I hope he's okay.
Yeah, so we'll see. Like again, how this kind of impacts the storyline, but yeah, otherwise, I just thought that was important.
Yeah. So does anyone else want to talk about the Red Sox at all? Because like there's just too
Let's
little information.
let's just watch the other 161 games unfold.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the Celtics now. So obviously, I mean, they had a pretty eventful week.
Mixed
kind of going
week.
well. Well, I would say like, even the loss against Milwaukee. Let's just talk about this because the thing is, the loss to Milwaukee.
The defense didn't really show up.
3 seed. No. But here's the thing. I'm actually okay that they lost because that loss pushes them to the 3 seed. That would mean they play the Chicago Bulls in the first round.
Ooh.
So
okay. All right.
That's where the advantage is. Whereas the 2 seed Milwaukee might have to play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round.
Okay.
So I would much rather play Chicago than Brooklyn any day. So I'm okay with what happened, right? Like obviously it was a little frustrating because that was a winnable game, like 127 to 121. But also just
they made a valiant effort though.
Yeah,
they made
Tatum
a valiant effort.
Horford didn't even play. Al Horford and Jason Tatum were resting. So I mean, Jaylen Brown was terrific. Marcus Smart had 29 points. Daniel Tice had 22. So I'm actually okay that the Bucks are the 2 seed because now they would have to play Brooklyn in the first round. So that would just kind of be better to play Chicago, like a team the Celtics beat 117 to 94 the day before in Chicago. And Brown had 25 points, and the Bulls are completely in free fall mode. I mean, that series really could be like 4 or 5 games at most. It should be. So I think the Celtics get a much easier matchup in Chicago. So I'm totally okay with them being the 3 seed and playing that Bulls team.
Yeah, 4-game losing streak for Chicago, I guess.
And Zach LaVine is publicly complaining now. He's basically publicly ripping the team, saying it's embarrassing. Like when your best player on a team is right before the playoffs is saying this is embarrassing and this is unacceptable, publicly airing grievances to the media. There are problems in Chicago right now. That is the team the Celtics should be able to beat like in 4 or 5 games again. So I'm excited about the Celtics. I am expecting a pretty good run. They have been playing great, like against the Wizards last Sunday, 144 to 102. Brown had 32 points. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Jaylen Brown more and more because recently he's actually been the leading scorer. Like he's kind of facilitating the offense, which is what I want to see because it's great to have Tatum going for 40, 50 points in a game, but that's not sustainable. What's sustainable is Tatum going for 30, 35 points a game, and Brown also giving 25 to 30 points a game.
If you're resting Tatum, if you're resting Tatum and you still got this close to beating Milwaukee, that's a good sign.
I mean, they also had great 3-point shooting that day, right? Like Sam Hauser was terrific, and so were others. So
I'm almost tempted to excuse this loss.
Yeah, I mean, considering like really the positives from the loss, which meant you're now the 3 seed and don't have to play Brooklyn. I mean, let's say there's more positive than negative. Obviously, the one kind of issue.
I'm just curious. Like, is tomorrow's game going to affect the standings, or are the Celtics locked in the 3 seed?
Not yet, because I think the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, they're like potentially.
What are all the possible scenarios depending on whether the Celtics beat the Grizzlies tomorrow or don't, and what the other teams are doing?
I think
what are all the possible scenarios?
2 to 4. I think that's their likely placement, somewhere between 2 seed to 4 seed. I think it depends on sort of how the stuff works. I actually don't entirely know
and
how
it's like some of the
work.
heads at that point, because then you're
they actually split with Milwaukee 2-2, and they also split with Philadelphia 2-2. So I don't really know.
So I guess whatever their secondary tiebreaker is, like points scored or points in your, like maybe wins against your division rival. The
thing is, Memphis tomorrow is probably just gonna rest their starters because they've already clinched the 2 seed.
Yeah, I don't think John Morant's gonna play tomorrow.
Yeah, so I don't think Memphis really has anything to play for tomorrow. So the Celtics should be able to win that game, hopefully, because I think the Celtics do have something to play for. So I think the Celtics aren't going to be playing Tatum, Brown, Horford, everyone, while the Grizzlies will likely be playing.
But then again, is it really beneficial? Is it really beneficial for the Celtics to win at this point because of the situation that you mentioned?
You want a 3 seed, right? You want to be sure you're the 3 seed, right?
So, yeah, but what if they accidentally end up getting the 2 seed?
Well, I don't know. Like,
I mean, I feel like it's hard to like predict that stuff, I guess, because like
Brooklyn's in the play-in, right? So Brooklyn, you would expect to beat Cleveland in the play-in, but if Brooklyn for some reason loses to Cleveland,
but let's say the Celtics lose and they slip to 4th. What happens if the Celtics lose and they slip to 4th? Then what happens?
I think then they play Cleveland, or not Cleveland.
They'll play Toronto.
Toronto, yeah.
Which Would be fun. I mean, the Bulls
yeah.
like
I'm not sure how I feel about playing the Raptors.
Also, just the one thing with the Raptors, yeah. So like, I mean, the Raptors are definitely like a team they should be able to beat too. I would be a little nervous because they are like a playoff like team as well. Like they have a coaching like Pascal Siakam. They don't have Kyle Lowry anymore. He's with the Heat, but they still have like the veterans who could make that a difficult series. I think Chicago is a much preferred option compared to Toronto.
It's going to be interesting to see how tomorrow unfolds. It's going to be a chaotic final day of the season because like all these teams are scrunched up like near the top of the of the East. It's going to be a wild finish tomorrow.
And even the play-in week, like coming up, like next week at some point, those are going to be exciting games because that's actually going to like kind of impact like who makes it. And this year's going to be very interesting because to see the Nets in the play-in tournament, it's going to be like kind of interesting because now they potentially, I think they're the 7th seed right now, so they have to play the 8th seed, or they're the 8th seed and they have to play the 7th seed. So I don't know which one it is. They're either the 7 or 8, I think. So if the Nets win their play-in game, then they're the 7th seed, and then they would probably have to play Milwaukee. So that's going to be the one I'm really keeping tabs on because chances are the Celtics, if they do play Chicago in the first round, second round, they would have to play Milwaukee. And I guess that would sort of be where the 2 seed is kind of important because if you play Milwaukee as the 3 seed, then you don't have home court anymore, right? Because so that would be the one kind of downside. I guess if Brooklyn does manage to beat Milwaukee, then you do have home court, but then you have to play Brooklyn. So we'll have to see what kind of happens from there. There's no like perfect scenario. There's no easy path. I think all these teams are going to be potentially problematic.
But Brooklyn also looks pretty beatable. I don't think I'm as worried about playing Brooklyn as you are.
I think Brooklyn's a kind of team that can, like, they're really by definition, I feel like a wild card. You know, I mean, there's a game where KD had 55 points and they still lost, right? And then there's other games where they just like trounced the Bucks or something. Like, I think the thing that worries a lot of people about the Nets are that if they happen to click in like just a few games in the middle of some random series, they could just like win that individual series, even if that means they're not going to go on and like make a deep run to the conference.
Yeah, I don't think Brooklyn has enough to win a championship this season just because of like how there's been a lot of like kind of like they don't really have much chemistry together, right? Because like Kevin Durant missed so much time, Kyrie Irving obviously like missed a lot of the season as well. So like for Brooklyn, there's really not much of a chemistry balance. And like even with Ben Simmons, right? He hasn't even played a game this season so far. So like I don't think he's going to even be able to make that much of a major like impact for this year. So I'm not too worried about like Brooklyn like winning a championship. But like as an opponent in the first round, also without Robert Williams, that would be problematic. Because like the thing is with Robert Williams, there's an expectation, there's a hope that he comes back for round 2. So if you play Brooklyn round 2 or Milwaukee round 2 and having Williams as your defensive anchor, then that will help you a lot more. You can beat Chicago in 5 games without Robert Williams, but against Milwaukee, against Brooklyn, against any of the better teams in the East, you're going to need Rob Williams. And that's, I think it's just matchup. It's a better matchup for you. So, you know, like even if you have to play Milwaukee and you on the road, I think you can still win one of those games. Like, I mean, they already held Milwaukee. They played pretty well against Milwaukee. I mean, on Christmas, that was when the team was sort of not doing well cohesively. And they still had a big lead and they blew it. But they still like were playing well against Milwaukee up to that collapse. So that just showed me that like if everything clicks for them, the Celtics can definitely beat Milwaukee. I think it will not be easy, but I think they can do it. So that's sort of my
I think it goes.
Celtics.
Yeah, they play Milwaukee. I think the Celtics win it, but it goes all 7.
That's okay with me, right? So they have to win Game 7 in Milwaukee, but they can do it. I mean, I don't think there's anything that like daunting about playing there. Like it's a good team. You got to respect them. They're the champions, but they're also a beatable team. So that's my take on this whole situation. I don't think there's really any team in the league, including the Phoenix Suns, that I look at and I'm like, okay, that's the team that the Celtics have no shot against at all. I don't see that. Like, there's no team out there which is like, oh my goodness, like I don't want the Celtics to play that team. So I'm okay really against anyone. Like it's not going to be easy, but they should be able to really hold their fort against anyone.
That's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be.
Definitely.
I guess the weird thing about this year is that basketball season is finishing up earlier than hockey season. Usually hockey season finishes up about like a week or 2 before basketball season, and it's flipped this year.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. I mean the Bruins.
But yeah, last year we saw like the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals in July. So anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, but that's a good transition now. So yeah, we both are optimistic. All of us are optimistic about the Celtics. So let's talk about the Bruins now a little bit. So I mean,
Bruins had a pretty good week as well.
Yeah.
The one loss that they had was pretty bad though against a team like the
I
Red
wanted to
Wings.
actually ask you about that. Are you concerned about Swayman going into the playoffs now?
What's like he's had a few like not so great games. Is it enough to be a cause for concern? I'm not quite sure because a lot of those goals were defensive breakdowns. Yes, the job of the goalie is to bail you out when the defense doesn't always inevitably do its job, but I think I was definitely on the rest of the team. I don't think that. I think Swayman could have played better. I mean, I think a couple of them, like a couple of shots that came in that went in from long range. I think he should have had those. Like a couple of those goals, like he should have saved those. So I think
Detroit isn't a good team at all, right?
Yeah,
so this was like a bad loss altogether, right?
Because it was from long range. It's not like there was any sort of screen or anything. It was from a bad angle. Those are things that goalies should be routinely saving. When that one went in, I was like, oh yeah, he should have had that one. But I just hope that it's not a recurring thing. But I mean, Olmark has luckily been playing well. Swayman, yeah, he's generally good, but the last week hasn't been too great for him. The last like couple of weeks or so haven't been too great for him. The other games went well for the Bruins, though. Swept the Blue Jackets home and away, and then beating Tampa. Now we're in sole possession of third place in the Atlantic. So that not having to be a wild card definitely helps a lot. And with 11 games to go in the season, it definitely helps. And I'm curious to see how tomorrow's game against the Caps goes because the Caps have historically given the Bruins a lot of difficulty. But
not anymore. I mean, last year they beat them in 5 games, so I don't think that really matters anymore, right? The past history.
Yeah, but 11 games to go. We're pretty much approaching that home stretch of the season. We can kind of get an idea of how teams are positioning themselves before the playoffs begin. I think at this point, there's not really any kind of doubt like who's going to be in the playoffs. Now it's just a battle for seeding. And in hockey, that doesn't really matter as much. So I'm really of the mindset to say that the next few games are relatively less important. Yeah, all games are important, but if there's a stretch of games that are relatively not as important, I would say it's the next few. Just because of the way seeding works and the fact that home ice doesn't really mean anything in hockey.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think well, first in kind of in regards to the goalkeeper scenario, I would say in some ways it's kind of a good problem to have when we're kind of choosing between players like Swayman and Allmark, who can both come in and at to different degrees kind of get the job done. So when one's going more hot or one's going more cold, you can kind of switch them out, right? That's kind of because Swayman had started I think like 7 of the last 9 games, but like you guys mentioned, the last week or two, he's kind of had maybe some struggles, and then to have Ulmer come in and then against Tampa Bay Lightning, he performed really well. He had 28 saves, only allowed like one goal right against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think going into the playoffs, it is I think a good problem to have in a way, kind of that you have the opportunity to have.
Last night's game was super entertaining, even though it was low scoring. It was like a ton of chances. Both of those goals in regulation came early in the second period, but it was just back and forth, chance after chance, and it looked like a classic goalies duel essentially last night.
Yeah, it did, and like you said, right, the Tampa Bay Lightning, that was going to be a good litmus test for us, right? Because we're entering, like I said, this is the month, April, when we're going to be playing teams like. Well, we are just played the Lightning. We're going to be playing the Penguins in a few weeks. April is kind of the month in our regular season kind of fixtures list where we're going to be playing a good number of teams that have playoff aspirations. So it's a really important statement to win too, I think.
Oh, definitely. I think that was a nice win yesterday. Allmark, obviously terrific. Loved the game winner by Charlie Coyle in overtime. And it's going to be interesting to see sort of how the playoffs match up. Obviously, we still have some questions about who they'll be playing in the first round, but I think the Bruins are playing better hockey recently. Obviously, the disappointing one against Detroit, but sometimes those happen. So we'll have to see like what happens going into the playoffs. But I am feeling better about the Bruins. But again, as I always say on the show with the Bruins, I don't believe them until I'll see it. I'll see it when I believe it, right? Sorry, I'll believe it when I see it. That's sort of what my takeaway with the Bruins always, because justifiably so, they have broken my heart too many times for me to just confidently believe in them at this point. But I do like what I'm seeing. We'll have to see if they can get the job done, though. So that will sort of wrap up our hockey segment, and let's just do a little bit of football just to make sure we cover the Patriots a little bit. So I don't know, Rohan, are you sort of, do you think this is still a playoff team? Like, do you think the Patriots are, like, as constructed right now, capable of making the playoffs next year?
At the very least, I think they're going to be better than they were last year. And if that,
So
and
that would be a playoff team then.
yeah. So yeah, I think, yeah. So that would be a playoff team, and potentially even winning the wild card round. I don't know about the divisional, but I think they'll get past the wild card round.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of discussed this a little bit, right? They got Devontae Parker, another receiver for Mac Jones, and I'm seeing those workout videos with Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker now joining, Nelson Aguilar. So I think they have a pretty good, like,
I'm just excited about Malcolm
group.
Butler coming back.
Yeah, that's what I'm interesting
excited
too. Yeah, I mean, it's good because, like, obviously, like, if you remember, like, the aftermath of Super Bowl 52, it was pretty ugly at the time. Like, Malcolm Butler, like, was really upset about being benched. Bill Belichick never gave an explanation at all. Then Butler signed with the Titans that offseason. And then there was just all sorts of drama then. And now they were able to make up, which is good. I mean, I think Butler hopefully can at least provide some impact to the secondary. I mean, so we'll have to see like how this team does. Like, I think the draft coming up will be very big for like what type of positions they try to fill. I like what they're doing at safety. I think they have a pretty good safety group with Jabril Peppers now added as well. So they have Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar, McCourty is back, Adrian Phillips. So they should have a pretty good safety group. I think the quarterback, if they can get like Jalen Mills, and then Butler, and then I think they signed someone from the Houston Texans. I forgot his name right now. But they signed someone from the Texans as well. So I think they have overall like a pretty decent group. I think at the linebacker, like at the pass rushing position, they need to do better at that. So I think that's going to be one area they really focus on in the draft. But we will be talking more about the draft. It is in a few weeks. So we will have an episode dedicated for the draft as we did last year. So stay tuned for that one at the end of the month. But yeah, Anirban, just quick thoughts on the Patriots. Like, are you feeling that this is sort of like going in the right direction, or are you kind of nervous?
I mean, I definitely think I feel a lot better than I did maybe when the offseason kind of trades first started and we were just seeing Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins or Devontae Adams to the Raiders or Von Miller to the Bills. You know, there were a lot of moves happening, and meanwhile the Patriots were, you know, not doing as much. So I'm really happy to see that. I think we're going to be a team that I've kind of revised my prediction a little bit after thinking about it. I feel like we're a team that can be in the hunt. Like I don't think a playoff spot is a given to us in the same way maybe like the Bills already kind of feel like they can make it, for example. So I feel like if things click for us and we are able to have kind of a strong middle of the season like we did last year, if we're able to kind of close the door against teams that we really should be beating like we did last season, I think we can actually make the playoffs. And then in regards to the draft, I mean, at this point we've already acquired I think Terrence Mitchell is the cornerback you were referring to from the
yes Terrence Mitchell, right? That I actually like the signing because I think he's a solid cornerback for that team. So I actually like the signing, him and Butler and Jalen Mills. That's a solid secondary, but a position you can definitely add during the draft, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? Like we got a wide receiver, we have acquired some cornerbacks, right? And when you look at the draft, it seems like most people are guessing the Patriots are going to spend their early picks on a mixture of offensive tackle or relatively offensive line additions as well as cornerback if possible. Though I don't know if the arrival of Terrence Mitchell and Malcolm Butler means they'll maybe hold off on that. I did see some news that they're speculating about some tight ends that Pats might be interested in early, but I kind of doubt that because I don't really think you can have Hunter Henry and Jonnu, like regardless of how well that's worked out. I don't think you can have both of them and then say I'm going to draft.
I think he's frozen.
Yep. I'm still up. Amartya, you're still up, and looks like we recently lost to Anirban over there.
Yeah, I echo it.
Oh,
I think we lost you a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think he's back now.
Oh, you lost me?
Yeah, we lost
froze.
you for the last 30 seconds.
Oh,
So rewind 30 seconds in your head.
So what was I just did I already mention?
They're talking about the tight end, like Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith.
Oh yeah. So I was saying like I kind of doubt that will be our priority. But I do think
Also drafted 2 tight ends in 2020. Just remember that.
Oh yeah, so we have 4 tight ends right now. Devin, like let's not forget Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene, who unfortunately have had various issues and injuries and getting on the field. But that point being, a few weeks ago I'd said that we'd probably draft a cornerback like Andrew Booth or something. But after thinking about it more, I kind of think we're going to go more towards offensive line now because, like you said, we've kind of addressed the cornerback at least to some extent. Let's try to really nail down the offensive line, and then maybe we could focus after on cornerbacks or linebackers, other kind of defensive pass rushers like you're mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, yeah. I mean, we'll have to see what sort of happens like with the draft. But I mean, that's kind of like the last piece of the puzzle for this offseason, right? Because afterward, like the rosters are kind of set at that point. And yeah, we'll have to see. I think like the Patriots, hopefully, like, I mean, I think definitely they need to address offensive line. And I wouldn't be like upset if they use that first round pick on like someone like Jameson Williams out of University of Alabama. He tore his ACL in the final college game of the season, but I mean, he is a terrific player if he can play. And he already has chemistry with Mac Jones from his Alabama days in college. So I am excited about that potentially if they can get Jameson Williams. But really, like, I think like offensive line is kind of an area they need to go after. And also, like, I think kind of getting more younger, faster players on defense will be very critical as well, because like what we saw in the playoff loss against the Bills was they looked very slow at times. Like they weren't able to get to Josh Allen quick enough, and they didn't even really pressure him at all. So that's sort of something I'm going to be looking at a little bit. I think the Patriots could potentially win like 10 games again. I think what I'm seeing is like 8 to 10 games is sort of what the expectation is. So I can see them sort of getting to 10-7 again. They do have a difficult schedule, and we'll do predictions of the schedule once the schedule is actually released. But the schedule isn't easy. Like, I mean, we already see that they play the NFC North. So that means the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings. They have to play the AFC North. So you got the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Browns. And so, like, there are a bunch of teams out there that are already very competitive. You got in your own division, you have Miami and Buffalo twice. So it'll be a tough schedule, but I am sort of at least hoping that this team can kind of like rely on sort of what they've done in the past, like what they did last year, right? Like sort of like kind of limit the bad football that they play and really force other teams to make mistakes. And that's how they were sort of really in contention, like in a lot of games last year where they probably shouldn't have been, right? Against Tampa Bay or Dallas, like teams that had better talent than the Patriots, but due to kind of like the whole situation, the games were very close in the end. Both losses, but I mean, both games that you could say were winnable. So I think that's sort of what they're relying on again this year. And I think the biggest thing I was thinking about this more is maybe the reason they haven't really upgraded too heavily at receiver is because they're expecting Mac Jones to take a big leap next year. Whether or not I can see that as justified, we'll have to see in the season. But I think they're expecting Mac Jones to have a big second season. And I think they're also expecting someone like Kendrick Bourne, because I've been reading this a little bit more and more. I think they're expecting Kendrick Bourne to really kind of emerge as a wide receiver one for this team next year. So if that's sort of their plan, then I guess that's a little risky. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, obviously, I like Kendrick Bourne. I like Mac Jones. I like the receivers. But whether or not any of those guys can really elevate themselves to being, like, one of the best in the league, I don't know. Like, I haven't seen it from them yet. I've seen potential, but that's really all I've seen at this point, potential. So that's sort of my takeaway on this. Like, I sort of have mixed feelings. Obviously, this can go two ways. Either it sort of just doesn't work out at all next year, and you realize that you should have given Mac Jones more help, or Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne and the rest of the receiving group takes a big leap, and then you're like, okay, Bill Belichick really is a genius. I mean, we already knew he's a genius, but like, wow, like this is impressive to a different level than when he had Tom Brady. So we'll have to see from that. But yeah, so that will kind of wrap up this episode. Obviously, we'll have to talk about. Until then, just enjoy the rest of your week, everyone, or weekend.
All right, peace.
Have a great day.